system of racism and white supremacy, then every single thing that you think you understand will only confuse you. Am I correct in saying that? And if so, what do you mean by that?
Well, I've said something similar to that, but the way that I have printed it in the textbook for victims of white supremacy is, if you do not understand racism, which is white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, what I mean by that is everything that people do is connected. What one person does is connected with whatever that one person is going to do in interaction with someone else. And people interact with each other in all 9 areas of activity, either directly or indirectly. I call it the 9 areas of people activity. That's economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And in all of these areas of activity, the people of this planet interact with each other either directly or indirectly. And the effect is that when they interact with each other, it's going to either have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. And so the white supremacists, the people who believe in mistreating people, dominating and mistreating people based on color, they have decided to set up a system called racism and or white supremacy. And so if you don't understand that system, then you don't understand anything that's going on the planet. You don't understand anything that's going on even in the individual comings and goings in any area of activity. You won't understand why you're going to school, or what that's going to mean when you get out of school, or what you're supposed to be learning and why, and for what ultimate purpose, and what effect it's going to have. Or if you spend money, I mean, what is that money about? You're told that you have to have money in order to go here and go there and do this and do that. So what is that all about? And who controls that money? Because whoever controls the money also will control what you're going to do or not do the whole time you're on this planet. And it's the same in all other areas of activity: politics, religion, sex, labor, law. So all of these 9 areas of activity. And if you're a person with color in your skin, everything that you do, wherever you are on the planet, is either directly or indirectly controlled by people who believe in dominating and mistreating people based on color. They are called white supremacists and or racists.
Now, can all have to be white? Can somebody be Chinese, be a white supremacist, or a Chinese supremacist? Is there such a thing? Is there such a thing as a black supremacist, an Indian supremacist, or is it only just white supremacist?
Not according to logic. You can't have 2 supremes at the same time, unless you're talking about a musical group or something like that. But when you're talking about racism, if you say white supremacy, that's exact. And that is singular, meaning one, just one supreme. You can't have 2 supremacists at the same time in the same planet. If you're talking about racism, particularly, if you say white supremacy, there can be no other supremacy at the same time that you have white supremacy. Even you can't even have 2 supremes at the same time. I mean, in different places, not on this planet. Because one is either going to be supreme or not. You got that choice. It's either it's supreme or not. Many people say there's no such thing as white supremacy. Well, then everything that I have to say would not apply to them, would not apply to any philosophy that they may have. Because if they disagree that the planet, when it comes to people of color, is being run by people who directly and indirectly function as white supremacists, that's either true or false. So a person does have to make a choice, on this program, any other program that I'm on, because I make the premise that the white supremacists run all of the affairs, not some, all of the affairs that amount to anything of anyone on this planet who has color in his or her skin, and they do it to the detriment of that person of color. That's what racism is. It's not just being different. It's being dominating and, last but not least, mistreating people who have color in their skin.
And having said that, then, can black people who have money and means, can they be black supremacists? Can they do what white folks with money and means? And is it all white people or just the rich white people who does this?
In the system of white supremacy, the money doesn't mean anything except whatever the white supremacists want it to mean. So if black people have money in the system of white supremacy, that money comes from the white supremacists. And if black people themselves fashion something, say diamonds or gold or tin or rocks, some black person might say, well, I'm going to pick up these rocks, these quartz rocks, and I'm going to say that quartz rocks is money. I'm going to say that rocks are money. Why? Because I'm going to say it. That's my choice. And in my country, we're going to have rocks for money. Now, that black person can do that. But the white supremacists will have to approve of it in order for it to be functioning as money. The white supremacists will take one look at those rocks and say, well, now, first of all, you black person, you non-white person, you're saying that it's money. But it's not money until I say that it's money. Because your money doesn't mean anything. I don't care how much of it you print, how you stack it up. I mean, you can stack it up to the moon. It means nothing until I say it means something. So all money is valued by the white supremacists when it comes to non-white people, because they set the values on all money. And how can they do this? By setting the value on people. When you control people, you control everything that the people have that they say is theirs, because it's really not theirs. I can't say that as a person of color, a non-white person, I can't say that my house is mine because I paid for it.
I tell you what, hang on a second, Dr. Fuller. We're running late. We got to take a break here. We're just listening so intent. I forgot to mention we got a traffic and weather update coming right here on AM 1450 and FM 95.9. WOL, where information is power. This is Neely Fuller Jr., folks, and we're talking about racism, white supremacy. He says if you don't understand it, everything else basically that you think you understand will only serve to confuse you. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I was getting into it, so I almost got late for the traffic and weather update, but you've got to listen very keenly. And anything you don't understand, just raise your hand by dialing us up at 800-450-7876. And I'll admit, the first time I heard it, I didn't get it. But after speaking with Dr. Fuller and Dr. Welsing, I figured it out. So don't be embarrassed. And if you don't understand, just say, it doesn't work. Obviously, you need some clarification. And don't be embarrassed. Just give us a call, 800-450-7876. And Neely Fuller Jr., I'm going to let you finish up what you were saying before we left for the traffic and weather update.
Well, the people who thought it up a long time ago. I don't know when. Some people say 400 years. Some people say 600 years. Some people say as far back as 2,000 years. I say I don't know. And I say I don't know because I don't know. Because it's been controversial about when. I don't know the first person who thought of something called racism. I don't know the name of that person, the exact moment that a person say, let's start a system called racism and spread that system throughout the world. I do not know the name of that person, the place where that person was, what that person looked like, whether it was male or female. I don't know. So I say I don't know. But there are people who claim that they do know. Well, I have no argument with them because I don't know. So I'm not in that argument. But I do know for a fact, as far as my satisfaction is concerned, that it exists now. And it is the most powerful political system and religious system. It's the most powerful religion. The system of white supremacy and or racism is the most powerful political system and the most powerful religious system ever produced minds of people. Now, that statement is either true or false. I know of no political system or no religious system that is more powerful than the system of white supremacy. It dominates more people, influences more people, causes more people to come and go and do whatever they do, white and non-white. We're all born in the system. All of the people who are now on this planet, this system was in place when the people who are now on this planet were born. So everybody participates. Everybody. The white people.
All right, let me interrupt you and ask you this then, Dr. Fuller. Can this be wiped out? Can this be eradicated, the racism? And if so, does it take us or is it the white supremacists who will have to change?
Oh, yeah, anything that people build, people can change. People can anything that people put together can be taken apart by people. That's the logic. If it's put together by people, it can be taken apart by people. So racism was put together by people. It's just the old royalist system. It's the royalist system put on a color basis. So that's why I wrote the book, The Compensatory Counter-Racist Code. The racists have a code. If you're a racist, you have to have a code in order to operate efficiently. So the white people are born into a codified system, and they can accept or reject the system. Many white people do reject the system, but not enough white people to overrule those white people who say that they agree with that system that's already in place. And it's logical that they would agree with it because that's all they're used to. They've never known any other system. No, sometimes people talk about the system of justice. That's what you want to replace it with. It's logical if you have a non-just system that you want to replace it with a system of justice. So justice would mean that you would do two things. Guarantee that no person is mistreated. And number two, guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help in all areas of activity, 24/7, anywhere that person happens to be on the planet, white or non-white. But most people on the planet are comfortable, even if they claim that they are uncomfortable, with the system that is already in place. And that system has one correct title, the system of white supremacy. There's no other correct title for it other than calling it racism. White supremacy is racism. Racism is white supremacy. There's no other form of racism on the planet. None.
All right, let me interrupt you again. Let me interrupt you again and ask you, under that theory that you just put out there, would Donald Trump be considered a white supremacist?
I can't call him that. Why? Because that's why we need a counter-racist code. According to the code that I'm saying, I can't call any white person a white supremacist unless that white person says that he or she is a white supremacist. Now, where is the logic in me saying that? The logic is if I say it, then I should be willing, ready, and able to prove it. And there's absolutely no one that I can prove that by. Anybody who has color in his or her skin, you call a white person a racist if you don't believe what I'm saying, and see if you're not going to have difficulty proving that. You can call anybody anything, but you call a white person a racist in the system of white supremacy. See, that goes to show the power of the system of white supremacy, and that power will be demonstrated, because here's what. You can't really prove it unless you get another white person to help you. If you don't believe it, try it. Because a black person's word means nothing when it comes to saying that a white person is a racist, unless you can get at least one white person to step forward and say, I'll back up this black person in saying that that white person is a racist. I'll say that that white person is a racist because I'm white and I know what I'm talking about, and so I'll make that judgment. So I am agreeing with this black person that that particular white person on this planet is a racist. Now that black person got something going for him. Otherwise, that black person is in danger of having no help at all, because no other black person can stand up and say, well, I agree. I agree with this black person that white person is a racist. And because of the way that the system of white supremacy works, no black person can back up another black person in saying that a white person is a racist and make it stick. You better find somebody who's white, which itself proves the existence of white supremacy. If you don't believe it, try.
And why is that?
Because of the system of white supremacy. Only a white person's word is valid. See? I mean, that's one thing we have to understand. You don't understand white supremacy. It may look like a black person is saying, oh, well, now, of course I said so. Well, now, who are you, Mr. Black person? You said so? What does that mean? In a world dominated by white supremacists, what does that mean? Because you said so. Well, where is your muscle? Where is your army? Who's going to back you up? You are dependent on the very people that you are accusing of doing anything that shouldn't be done. So, boy, you better shut up. You better find out what white supremacy is. And if you don't, in about 5 minutes, we can show you. If you haven't found out by now. You don't understand the world that you're in. You think you got some backing? And that backing is going to come from somebody black? Well, what black person can stand up and say, I'm not under white supremacy? White supremacists don't tell me what to do. There isn't a black person on this planet that the white supremacists don't tell what to do. Not one.
All right, folks,
that statement I made is just is either true or false.
Neely Fuller Jr. is our guest, 800-450-7876. And again, listen very keenly to what he's saying because he uses logic to prove his points. Again, that number is 800-450-7876. Patricia's on line one. I think she's got a question or a comment for you. Patricia, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, good evening. How are you?
I'm still learning.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, my question is, everything is coming full circle from what you're saying. Everybody that the President Trump is putting in the cabinet are affecting these 9 areas that you're talking about. So how do we, as black people, survive in this white supremacist system? Because it's coming to fruition right now. All the 9 areas, he's appointing white people, or he's reporting, quote unquote, people, black people like Ben Carson in one of those positions, but he doesn't have control. He's just a puppet. So how do we as black people survive in this system now?
Same way prisoners survive who are prisoners of war, because that's what we are. We've survived the way we have always survived. Survival is not the problem. We have always survived. The white supremacists have allowed us to survive. They could kill us all if they wanted to. Who would care? Many, many, many millions of black people wouldn't care. Truth be told. See, everything in counter-racist science is about truth. So truth be told, if the white supremacists decide, well, we're tired of these black people. They don't have any business on the planet. They shouldn't have been sent here anyway. So we're going to get rid of all of them. Who would come to our rescue? That's a question. Who is that?
Hang on a second, Dr. Fuller. I know that's a rhetorical question, but we're going to take a break. Patricia, I thank you for your call. 800-450-7876. Speak to Neely Fuller Jr., discussing racism, white supremacy. Take all your calls next on AM 1450 and FM 95.9. WOL, where information is power. Thank you for sticking around with us and our guest, Neely Fuller Jr. We're talking about racism, white supremacy, and I got to tell you, folks, you got to listen really keenly because Dr. Fuller uses logic to explain his answers. And he got a call from Patricia in Maryland, and she posed the question. Now, I'm going to give you a chance to finish responding to Patricia, Dr. Fuller, but also when you finish, because Dr. Welsing told us that many of us, we're not trying to eradicate the system of racism and white supremacy. Well, all we're trying to do is get a better seat, so it affects us less. So I want you to comment on that, what she said, and also finish responding to Patricia's question. Thank you.
Oh, that trying to get a better position in the system of racism?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
You're right. Many people don't want to see dismantled. They're happy that it's on because they've got a good seat as far as they're concerned, and they're happy they're not on the bottom rung, and they're just trying to get a better seat.
Oh, sure. And this is why we have all these problems, and we'll continue to have them as long as that is our goal. We need to eradicate the entire system of racism and replace it with a system that has never existed, and that's a system of justice, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated for any reason, white or non-white, guaranteeing that, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, millions of people have given lip service to the concept of the system of justice, but it's never produced by anybody in recorded history. There's no record of that situation ever existed, but it can be brought into existence. Why? Because just like going to the moon or any other project, anything that people can imagine that can be done, that the creator of people have allowed us to imagine that we can do, and that is possible, it is possible to see to it that no person mistreats another person. You can have that kind of system. There are people who will say, oh, that's impossible. That's because they have never seen it. But a lot of things that have never been seen have been made possible. There are people who used to say that it's impossible to have a box sitting in your living room and you're sitting there looking at it, and you're looking at a person who is 10,000 miles away, and you're looking at that same person, the image of that person, in a box on what you call a screen in your living room, and it's called television. Now, if you had said that to someone 800 years ago, they would say that you're a lunatic and probably want to kill you, because they'd say that, you're overcome by the devil or something, even thinking like that. But people have put together a whole lot of things on this planet that they put their will to doing. So actually, the system of racism is put together very simply. It's a very simple system. You just see somebody who has color in his or her skin and say, there goes a person that I can mistreat, and nobody's supposed to do anything about it. And so you got enough people to agree with you, so you just did it. Now, all you have to do is just say, well, we're not going to do that anymore. There's people who, have the correct idea, the correct mind, people who really are serious when they say they believe in justice, just do away with that system. But until everybody who has that idea really starts getting serious about it, rather than just trying to find a position in it, this is a bogus system, an artificial system. And as long as we're just trying to squirm around, just trying to find a little position in it so we can show off to our friends and neighbors and all like that, which is what we have been doing, that's all we have really been doing, then this is going to continue. We're going to still walk around saying Black Lives Matter, and Black lives don't matter to anybody else who does matter. Black lives only matter to people who don't matter in a system of white supremacy. And we're going to continue to have that as long as we're not talking about getting rid of the entire system and call it just that, outright, the system of white supremacy that dominates this entire planet, and come up with a better system. And a better system would not be black supremacy or any other kind of supremacy, because you don't want black people, if white people didn't exist, you still don't want black people walking around acting the way we act right now. You can look at that disaster. Look at the whole world of black people acting the way that black people act right this minute, collectively, everywhere, with all the gangs and the drugs and all like that. Is that what we want? No. We want a completely different system. And that would, logically speaking, talking about logic now, not Neely Fuller's opinion, raggedy opinion. Neely Fuller's opinion, is raggedy unless he taps into the logic that came with the universe. And the logic says you would replace it logically. If you're going to replace a system, don't replace it with something that's ragged, something that's going to fall apart. something that's not going to be better than the system that you got, you might as well keep what you got if you're not going to have something better. And what would be better than a system of non-justice? So logically speaking, you would set up a system that is justice. So then you got to have a definition for justice. And what is justice? I made up one because the one that they have been using doesn't make sense. Look in the dictionary and look for the word justice and see if it makes sense. I mean, it's all over the place. Even in, I don't care what kind of book you use with the word justice in it, because I did that. And I said, the definition is all over the place. I mean, I don't have anything to really dig into. So I made up one, a compensatory definition for the word justice, and I think it will hold up until somebody comes up with a better one. And that is those two parts. Part one, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. And part two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, I can use a logical example for that. 10 people in a room. So you walk into the room and you say, now, how many people in here are being mistreated? So somebody holds up their hand. Maybe and maybe not. But if anybody holds up their hand and say, okay, how are you being mistreated? And mistreated by whom? Mistreated in what ways? Is it really mistreatment? And examine it to the nth degree. All right? It may be 3 people that hold up their hands out of the 10. So you examine each one and see if the mistreatment is there. All right? And suppose nobody holds up their hand, nobody's being mistreated, but you say, go to the second one, you say, how many people in here need some kind of help? So everybody's hand will probably go up because most likely, logically speaking, everybody needs some kind of help. Everybody on the planet. From one minute to the next, they need some kind of help, even if it's no more than help finding the bus stop or the nearest filling station. That's help, okay? So everybody's hand is likely to go up in that room, including the person who asked the question. So what you do then is find out who needs the most help. And you'll have to ask each person, okay, how much help do you need, of what kind? And the person that needs help the most is the person that you start with. Start with the person that needs the most help, and then work back from that. Now, we've already shown examples of that in some things we do that we take for granted. For one thing, when you drive down the highway, you hear a siren. So you pull over. Because what does that siren mean? Somebody needs more help than you do. So we recognize it in that context. Now, we could do that throughout the entire planet, all the time. Start with the person that needs the most help in every situation, whether it's 10 people in a room, or it's 200, or it's the whole world. Start with the people that need help the most, and everybody who is able to give some help, give the help that is needed, constructive help. Now, if the person is asking for something non-constructive, if the person says, well, I need some help because what I need is another cocaine fix, well, then you look at that and say, okay, you need a cocaine fix, but is that constructive? And so if you examine what cocaine does to people, you say, okay, well, what you're asking for is not really help because it's not constructive. That's non-constructive. So we don't want to do anything that's non-constructive. So we're not going to give you no help on that. So name something else that you need help with. Need help in finding a place, a roof over your head and all like that? Now we're talking. Nothing but logic. Just pure logic. I mean kindergarten logic. That's all we need to solve this so-called race problem. And I don't mean in 100 years, another 50 years. We've got to get that out of our minds completely. Here in 2017, we're talking about instantaneous solutions. I mean, like right this minute, not even tomorrow, not even the next 24 hours. Come up with solutions that are put to work right this minute. That's what compensatory logic is supposed to be about.
All right, 800. 800-450-7876. Speak to Neely Fuller Jr. Again, please listen very keenly to what he's saying, and he uses logic. And those folks who've taken a logic course in college, they understand, will grasp it quicker than most folks. But let's go to Stephen on line one, calling us from the district. Stephen, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. When he told you about a statement of a black person testifying against a white man, that I could verify to be true, because I had a case in the government building on the EEO case, and I won the case, but I later found out that because I won the case because one of my white co-workers testified that the person who was mistreated me was a racist. And when me and him talked about it, it kind of like shocked me, scared me, and just blew me.
Hang on a second, Stephen. Yeah, we want to hear your story, but we've got to take a quick break here and check the traffic and weather in the DMV right here on AM 1450 and also FM 95.9. WOL, where information is power. Thank you, Tom. 800-450-7876. Number to call. Speak to Neely Fuller Jr. We'll get back to Stephen in D.C. in a moment. Just want to tell you that Professor James Small is going to be stopping by the end of the week. Also tomorrow, Brother Zaki Baruti from the Universal African Peoples Organization. Says there's a lot of black folks that are missing, and he wants to do something about that. And also, talking about the violence in our community, says he's got a plan for that as well. So tell your friends to keep it locked right here on AM 1450 and FM 95.9. Let's go back to Stephen in D.C. Stephen, I'll let you finish telling your comment to Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, the statement that he made about blacks testifying against whites about being racist and everything like that in any type of hearing or court case and everything like that, and it would not be taken as serious or the truth until you have a white person testifying for you or with you against that other white person that's a racist. I can verify that to be true. I had a case in the Department of Justice, and I was just blown away after I found out, even though I won, that the reason why I won, because of this one white employee that me and him had talked before about him being a Christian and everything like that. And if you saw someone doing wrong, which you testified to good, and I think that kind of like helped. But the point is, he even found out that because of his testimony, that won the case. And even after they have talked to dozens of other blacks trying to find out about this white guy's personality and how he treats them and how people look at him and why people don't talk to him and why he don't talk to them and everything like that, that was not good enough. It was, like he said, down to that one white individual. When he testified against him as being a racist, the case was shut and closed, won. Now, I could testify to that, and to be honest with you, my brother, I was blown away. I was like shocked, like the world came to. I just couldn't believe it. After all the evidence and proof and all the witnesses and dozen people that they talked to, you would think, people who really didn't sit beside him, know him, all that well and everything like that, but knew of him, saw him, and witnessed him, they really went out their way to try to, what they claimed, do a full, thorough investigation. But it was just amazing, this mind-blowing that it just took one white guy, just one.
Right, but we get the story, Stephen. Let's give Dr. Fuller a chance to respond to your story. Does that, what Stephen's story, Neely Fuller Jr., is that what you're talking about?
I'm not only talking about just that. I tell people on every program, and I say this, I'm going to say it again on this one, and I've said it on this program before, never, ever, under any circumstance, believe anything that Neely Fuller says about anything. Go test it yourself. It ain't nothing like testing something yourself to the nth degree, and then see what you see. Because if you don't see what I saw, or I happen to be making an error, that ain't supposed to happen. That is not supposed to happen. Because in counter-racist science, you better be scientific, and you better not make any mistakes. Because if you're going to get rid of racism, you got to be mistake-proof. But I do make mistakes. That's why I say I invite people, because I don't mind making mistakes, because whatever mistakes I'm making, I don't want to keep making them. So anything that I say that doesn't make sense even, I mean, examine it thoroughly, and And if you have a suggestion about what to do about something, I mean, by all means, put that suggestion forward. Because this is not about personalities. This is not about Neely Fuller. This is about getting a job done. If you're going to go to the moon, you can't play around. You can't make mistakes if you're going to the moon. Otherwise, you're not going to get there, or you're not going to get back if you do go. You better, and anybody who is, astronauts and people who are in what you call astrophysics and all like that, people that know about aerodynamics and all like that, the mathematicians, like recently I understand they have made a movie about some black ladies who were mathematicians. You can't play around with that. And trying to solve the problem of racism is not a loosely fitted problem-solving adventure, you might say, or endeavor. You don't play around with that. You better have it together. I mean all together. Not some of it, not pieces of it and all like that. But nobody knows about, how racism works to the nth degree, including Neely Fuller. Otherwise, this problem would have been solved. The only experts on racism, white supremacy, are whom? The racists themselves. So even Neely Fuller is an amateur. You don't have any black people who are experts on racism. None. There's no such thing as a PhD on racism until that person with that PhD, whatever that means, has solved the race problem. That's the only way. The races have proven that they know what they're doing because white supremacy does exist. They have proven that they're experts. So anybody who thinks that he or she is an expert on getting rid of racism, they haven't proven it. Why? Because racism's still here. So everybody else is an amateur. Everybody, including all the white people who claim that they're trying to get rid of it. Many a president has walked up, taken a look at the race problem, wrote something on it, made speeches about it, and then walked away throwing up their hands, saying, I don't know what to do, I got some ideas, but I don't know whether they'll work or not. It's the most exasperating problem, political and religious problem the world has ever seen. So, like I said, you have to approach it with total seriousness. And you better think about not being a mistake maker, because mistakes will be costly. They have been so far, and they will continue to be. And that includes me and everybody else in this endeavor. But you try to minimize your mistakes. That's very important. So that means what? Like going to the moon? You make tests. You make tests before you really make an ultimate test. You run tests on things. If you have a theory or something like that, you get out there and test it. And don't play around. And don't get into personalities, because it's not personal. Like they say in the mafiosa, like they say in The Godfather. It's not personal, it's business. It's serious business. Dealing with racism, one way or another, is serious business. Many a black person keeps forgetting that. That's why they get gunned down in the street. I have said on this program, and I'll continue to say it, law enforcement, just in the area of law enforcement, one of the 9 areas of activity, in the area of law. Don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee. If you have color in your skin, don't fool around. This is no game. This is not some school ground scrap. If that person wearing that badge and that gun is a racist, don't fool around. Don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee. Why? For a very logical reason. You are going to lose. I'm going to say that again. You are going to lose. You're not going to win. You fuss, you fight, you flee. Learn something at least once. You are going to lose. Somebody out there right now is fussing, fighting or fleeing. Now, nothing may not happen, but you ain't got no guarantee. But I'll tell you what, if that person is a white supremacist, you're guaranteed to lose. Why? Because you're in a system of white supremacy, and you got no backup. All your so-called friends and whatnot are of no use to you at all in that situation. And if you don't believe it, keep trying it. Because everybody who's tried it lost. Got to know what system you're in. If you're black, you're already in jail. All right? Because you were born in jail. The system of white supremacy itself is the greatest prison system that was ever invented in the minds of people in recorded history. Period.
All right, hang on a second, Neely Fuller Jr. 800-450-7876. David's calling you. He's on line 2. He's also living in the district. David, you have a question or a comment for Neely Fuller Jr.?
Yes, I think that everything you're saying is completely fascinating, and I think it's amazing, just your perspective. But I just have a question. Let's say that all of a sudden we decide to just go for justice. What do we do? What do people do with the hate, the emotion? How does that factor into making things right and eliminating racism? How does the emotion play into it? Because people are so fragile.
Yes, we all are. Excellent question. I'm thinking right now of a movie, Saving Private Ryan. And recently I've been citing a scene in that movie. I've seen that movie. It's about World War II. All right? And I've seen this particular scene maybe 5 times. It didn't register with me the first 2 or 3 times I looked at the movie. But I look at movies. I look at a lot of movies when I do have time, particularly ones that I think have lessons in them. If I don't think they have lessons in them, I don't have the time to look at them. But some lessons, some movies, I mean, particularly ones that are highly touted, I'll look at them and try to see what lessons I can get out of movies, which is something in counter-racist science you're supposed to do. A lot of people say they don't look at TV, they don't look at movies. I say you look at everything. If it's in the universe with you, it might be better idea, a logical idea to check it out if it's supposed to be, because it might affect you one way or another, either directly or indirectly. So it's this particular scene in Saving Private Ryan. And I think the movie actor is Tom Hanks, who plays the part of a captain after the Normandy landing and in World War II. And they're behind the German lines, and Tom Hanks, who is Captain Miller, he's talking to one of his men who is in his squad, and they're looking for this private behind enemy lines, and they stumble up on what appears to be a German radar site, if I remember correctly. And so they said, well, we could go around it because they don't know that we're here. The Germans don't know we're here. We just happen to stumble up on them. So they're not aware of our presence. So we can hit them, and take them out, or we can go around them, and they'll never even know that we were here, because they're not looking for us here, and we found them. So they got to discussing it back and forth. So to make a long story short, the captain says, well, I think we're gonna hit this, we're gonna attack this radar site. We're gonna attack that machine gun nest that's protecting it. And so one of the men in the squad say, Captain, and here we get to the feeling part. He says, Captain, I don't feel good about this. And the captain said, when is the last time you felt good about anything? And I think that was profound. A question, like a lot of questions are. It's just a simple question. For one thing, he looked at their situation. See, we just came through the Normandy landing, D-Day, the 6th of June, the greatest invasion amphibious in history.
Yeah, hang on a second, Dr. Fuller. We got to take a break here because we're closing in on the top of the hour. Folks, we'll take your calls for Dr. Neely Fuller at 800-450-7876. It's the big show. Rolls on from the capital city on AM 1450 and FM 95.9. WOL, where information is power. And thank you for staying with us. We were just getting off work. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. He's Dr. Wilson's mentor. Number to call to speak to Dr. Fuller is 800-450-7876. And basically, he says, if you don't understand racism, white supremacy, that system and all that it entails, everything else that you think you understand will just confuse you. So, Dr. Fuller, I'm going to let you finish up your story about Private Ryan. And also, when you finish, if you can tell us about the 10 basic steps that you say black people must do.
Oh, okay. You want me to get to that right now, the 10 basic steps, or finish what I was doing?
Finish what you're saying first, and then the 10 basic steps.
Okay. I was talking about this captain who was leading his squad into a battle with a machine gun nest in World War II. Supposed to be depicted on, I guess, on Truth and whatnot, an incident that actually happened. Anyhow, he asked a question, like I always say in the textbook and everything, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers, and all issues are confronted. Okay, so he asked a question, a simple question. When is the last time you have felt good about anything? Because the man in his squad said, Captain, I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about this proposal you have of hitting this German machine gun nest. Some of us might get killed. It's dangerous and whatnot because we don't have any heavy equipment and we got to run across a lot of wide open ground and they'll spot us coming. So I don't feel good about this. And the captain asked a question. When is the last time you felt good about anything? Now, this discussion, this part of the program is about black people's feelings. Black people's feelings has gotten us nowhere. Therefore, I'm using this as an example. You have to use logic. It doesn't make any difference how anybody feels. And I've seen that in folklore, and I've seen it in what you might call real life and all like that. There are situations that you confront where you're not going to feel good. It's not about feeling good. It's about carrying out a mission. That was what that captain was saying. When is the last time you felt good about anything? You're a soldier on a battlefront. You just came through the Normandy landing where thousands of people got killed. You happen not to gotten killed. Now, we're going on another mission, in which case you might get killed. You're in France. You got to go all the way through Belgium. Now, he didn't say all of this, but all of this was implicit in what he was saying. You're in France now, on a battlefield, and you're a soldier. You got to go all the way through France, then through Belgium, then into Germany before this thing is over. And you are not likely to survive. Now, how do you feel about that? But it's not about how you feel. It's about carrying out the mission. And that is something that black people need to learn in this thing that we're dealing with. Racism and producing justice. It's not about anybody's feelings. Yes, we do have emotions, but emotions are supposed to do what? When you see that things have to be done, problems have to be solved, emotions are supposed to lead you to concentrating on solving the problem. Or you succumb trying. Because what are your options? You're either going to solve the problem or you're not. So it doesn't have anything to do with feelings. Yes, I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about racism. I'd like to feel good. This is why black people get strung out on drugs and all like that. We want to feel good every 3 minutes. We want to feel good about everything. We are party time people. We believe in having parties. We are the backbone of every Mardi Gras that ever was. From what I've heard, whether it's in Brazil or whether it's in New Orleans, we want to feel good. We want to get down. We want to boogie. We want to laugh and keep laughing and keep laughing and keep laughing and keep laughing. And this is why we are mostly sad. Why? Because we never get around to doing what? Doing the job that needs to be done. So, we can still have feelings, but our feelings are supposed to be designed to help us to solve problems. So, when is the last time we felt good about anything? Forget about that. We don't even think about feeling good. We shouldn't. We should think about getting the job done that needs doing. Then we'll be taking as serious people about serious things, because this is serious. And it's not too much of a laughing matter. Not very many jokes in there, even though we try hard to make a joke of everything. But fighting racism is no joke. And it's going to have a whole lot of casualties, because we've had a whole lot of them all along. We can't keep ignoring this problem trying to feel good. When it's the last time we felt good about anything, we should ask ourselves that. Because we're not entitled to feel good about anything, because we're not on our job.
All right. And the 10 basic steps or stops that black people should do?
Okay, the 10 basic stops. I have my old book in front of me here, so that's on page 49 of the older book, but on the 2016 volume, it's on another page. So it starts with, what page did I say it was on? I said it was on page 49. So I have to turn to it because I want to be exact. So what I have it here, right here in front of me, right quick. I have for page 49, the 10 basic stops that victims of racism, meaning non-white people throughout the entire planet, should practice in speech and or action. Okay, now this is a controversial one right out of the gate. Stop snitching. Now a lot of black people applauds that anytime anybody says it. A lot of black people, not all, but a lot of black people will applaud that. They'll say, yeah, no snitching. Black people ought to stop snitching. Okay. But then you got to know what snitching means. Snitching means that you are revealing information that's helping the racist to do greater harm to non-white people. Snitching does not mean that you are trying to prevent, or rather it does mean that when you snitch, it does not mean that you're trying to prevent black people from harming each other. Black people who are out here killing each other say, don't snitch on me. You're supposed to break your finger, pointing to that black person who's harming another black person unjustly. You break your finger pointing out that person. That person should be wrapped up right quick. Any black person mistreating anybody, this is not a cover for mistreatment. No. Snitching means you give harmful information to people who are set out to doing harm to non-white people. That's what snitching is. Snitching is not protecting anybody who is trying to do unjust harm to anybody else. You always reveal that. That's what you call constructive information. So get that straight, because a lot of people have taken that as a license to go out and rob and steal and do harm to other black people and say, don't y'all tell it. Don't y'all tell I did that now. I killed that black person, that other black person, that boy that I went to school with. I killed him on the bus stop and took his money because I didn't have any money, so I killed him and took some money. All right? Now, I don't want nobody around here to tell nobody that I did it. Everybody in the world should know that you did it the moment that you did it. Stealing and robbing from other black people, and you don't want anybody to tell it? That's not logical, and that's not progress, and that's not problem solving. That's making a greater problem. And anybody who's even thinking about doing something like that, somebody should stop them before they even get down the road, before they get out the door, and locked up until they get that out of their minds. Right there. So that's stop snitching. Oh, yes, stop snitching means informing to the racists in a manner that's going to help them better to practice racism. That's what snitching is. Okay, number 2, stop name calling. Don't call anybody, ever, any name except the name that the person wants to be called. That's one of the 10 basic stops. If we're going to be people that we ought to be on this planet now, we have to change a lot of things. And that's another one. Stop name calling. Always call a person by the name that he or she wants to be called, regardless of who it is, white or non-white. And even if they change their names, if the person says, well, my name is Willie Smith, every day up until 12 o'clock. After 12 o'clock, my name is Akbar. So you say, okay, Willie, so you're Willie Smith before 12 o'clock. That's right. And after 12 o'clock, your name is Akbar. That's right. That's what I want. If you're going to talk to me at all. So you do it. What is it going to cost you?
All right, hang on a second, Dr. Fuller. We're going to take another break. Hang on a second. We got to check our last look, actually, at the traffic and weather in the DMV. 800-450-7876. Join the class, folks, and speak to Neely Fuller Jr. right here on AM 1450 and FM 95.9. WOL, where information is power. And thank you for staying with us. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. talking about racism, white supremacy. He's got a book, by the way. It's got a long title. So after finishing telling us about the 10 basic stops that blacks should not do, I'll ask him to give us information so that you can get a copy, because it's actually a workbook if you want to understand racism, white supremacy. So, Dr. Neely Fuller, I'm going to let you finish up giving us I think you did 2 first, or 2 or 3?
Or 2 or 3 what?
Out of the 10 basic stops that blacks should not do.
Oh, I'm at number 2 now. Stop name calling.
Go ahead.
It's 10 of them. It's 10 stops.
All right, continue.
So number 2 is stop name calling. And I started saying, don't do it. Don't call anybody by any name ever, or title, ever. Anybody, white or non-white, male or female, get in the habit, because black people have a habit of, when we get angry and whatnot, first thing we start thinking about is how many different kind of names we can call the person. Get out of that habit altogether. Always call the person by the name or title that the person wants to be called. That should be almost like something automatic. We just do that. A part of the counter-racist code, a part of the you might say, logical code, because it is logical. Doesn't cost you anything to call a person by the name or title that the person wants to be called. Always do that, even when you're angry with the person. Never call the person by any name except the name that the person wants to be called. I mean, these are things that we should have as part of the code, the counter-racist code, the compensatory code, the logical code, the code of the future, the code that's going to help change us from what we are to the type of people that we ought to be, because we are not the type of people that we ought to be. Well, stop bragging about how we are. We are not the type of people that we ought to be. Neither are the white supremacists. Neither are white people in general. Neither are any people in general on this planet now. So we should be pioneering the way that people ought to be all the time, thinking about ways to do that. Okay, and name calling, we should get rid of that altogether. That's just something we don't do. We should be known for people who don't do that. Now, what if someone calls you a name? Then you just respond by not calling them a name. Whatever you say to them, whatever you say, you're still not calling them a name. I don't care how many names they call you. Now, traditionally, black people say, oh, when you call me a name, I'm supposed to outdo you. I'm supposed to come back at you with, you call me one name, I call you two. You call me 3 names, I call you 25 names. And we've gotten in the habit of that. I got to find some names to call you now, because you call me some names. No, it works just the opposite. The more names they call you, the more you become determined you are going to call that person by the name and title that they want to be called. You can still discuss whatever you're discussing, but it's not any name calling coming from you. Because this is the way we should discipline ourselves to be. It's excellent training in what you call conversation control. And according to the code, we are supposed to become masters at conversation control. The best in the world. Conversation control. Know how to control a conversation so that we always said and did the best possible thing that could be said and done under every circumstance without exception. So let anybody call you any kind of name. A person say, I'm not going to let nobody call me let. What do you mean let? We even got that thing, that's them. Those are remarks that they are making. That has nothing to do with you. Nothing. That has absolutely nothing to do with you if you do what? If you think logically. If you think about it logically, somebody calling you a 2, 3, 4 dozen names in less than 3 seconds shouldn't rattle you at all. You should be like steel. You should be like ice, or like the hardest type of iron that there is. You didn't flinch at all. You didn't even bat an eye, regardless of what name they called you. And you can test yourself on doing it, starting the next time that it happens, and see how easy it is, and see how much control you have, and see how you are growing into a real man or a real woman, rather than some 5-year-old learning how to get into some type of ghetto glorification, which is worth absolutely nothing. Now, let's go to, we're going to have time, because I don't like, hello.
Yeah, go ahead. We're listening.
I don't like to go into these, any of the stops. I usually don't like to go into them on the air because it usually takes up a lot of time, but I like to be thorough because people get what? They get confused, they get misunderstanding. So I'm going to number 3. Stop cursing. Now, black people have a national anthem. We're known for it. It's not lift every voice and sing. It's what? It's MF. That's the black national anthem. Truth be told. Everything in counter-racist science is about truth. You start with truth. Truth, then justice, then correctness. Put them all together, and you got this thing called peace, hypothetically. We're not even on right out of the crib of going in the direction we should go, because we keep skipping over stuff that we do that is non-constructive and doesn't work for us very well at all. So we think that being able to curse everybody out, come up with all kinds of new curse words, try to rack our brains when we should be working some type of mathematical problem, racking our brains trying to figure out how to curse somebody out the next time we see them, and then bragging about it and thinking that we're making some type of contribution to problem solving. Those 2 important words, problem solving. We're not known as problem solvers, truth be told. So, stop cursing. Get rid of that term MF. That national anthem, the black national anthem, particularly in the Northwestern Hemisphere. And we want everybody else to adopt it and say that this somehow lifts us up, that this is the way to go. This is the black lifestyle. That's pure garbage. Stop calling anybody anything and stop cursing. Just stop it. It doesn't add anything to the conversation. And if it does, prove it. What is it about it that causes a person to think constructively? I've been in what you call the military and whatnot, where people nonstop use every type of profane thing that they could possibly say. When I thought about it, well, at the time, I mean, people would jump and all like that, so, but then you think about the entire military situation. What is that about? Because a lot of military situations are absolutely insane. And I can testify to that myself, personally. And I think a lot of other people can. A lot of things that you're assigned to do made no sense at all. So why not a lot of other things making no sense at all? So just stop cursing. Okay. Number 4, stop gossiping. That's a hard one. What is gossip? Saying something about someone that you wouldn't say to someone. Real simple. Sometimes I have to catch myself. I say, wait a minute, I'm fixing to say something now. Would I say this about that person if this person was standing here listening to me say it? And if the answer is no, then I cannot say it. That is the test for gossip. Stop saying anything about anybody that you wouldn't say to that person themselves. Get out of that habit. It's in the system of white supremacy. I mean, gossip, and we're told to embellish it. I mean, we make TV programs around it and all like that. I mean, but at least on a TV program, you're saying it to the whole world, so it can't be classified as gossip. It really isn't gossip if you're saying it to everybody. But if you're saying something about any person, stop and think, would you say that about this person if the person was right there listening to you say it? And if the answer is no, you would not, then don't do it. That is how you put yourself to a test. These are all self-testing suggestions. Every last one of them. Stop gossiping. Move on to number 5. Stop being discourteous. When you're around people, and I have to watch myself doing that. I think we all do. But we should really concentrate on doing it. Sometimes on a telephone conversation, I find myself being discourteous. Being discourteous how? I will break into a person's sentence. Sometimes I've done it on the air, but I have to really watch myself there. A person is saying something. They're saying something that they are honest and dedicated and really concentrating on trying to say it, particularly on the air. And then I break into what they are saying and cause them to be disoriented. I have to change the way that they're saying it or something like that. No.
I tell you what, hang on a second. I got to break in right now because we got to take a quick break. I'll let you finish on number 5 on the other side, right here on AM 1450 and also FM 95.9. WOL, where information is power. 800-450-7876, number to call, speak to our guest, Neely Fuller Jr. It's another class, if you will, if you're the first time you're hearing him, about racism, white supremacy, this complex system, and it encompasses everything that we do. And he says, basically, if you don't understand how it works and everything else you think you understand, will just confuse you. So, Neely Fuller Jr., I'm going to let you continue the 10 basic steps that black people must do. You were, I think, number 5.
Number 5, stop being discourteous. Now, what if someone is discourteous to you? Just like the name calling and all like that. You still have it in your mind. Try to cement it in your mind. Write that in steel. Anytime, if you're in the presence, say, of 5 people, and all 5 of those people are very courteous, have it in your mind. I am going to be more courteous than the most courteous person of these 5. Just stick that right in your mind. I'm not going to let anybody be more courteous than me. And that might take some doing, because sometimes you're around people who are very, very courteous. So you say, oh, yeah, well, they can be courteous, but they're not going to be more courteous than me. I'm going to out courtesy anybody that I happen to be around. And just use that as your benchmark, you might say. That's a part of your code. You're not going to let nobody be more courteous than you in any circumstance you find yourself in. Any circumstance. And there's practice doing it. You'll find that, hey, it's a pretty healthy thing to do. And it's teaching you what? How to have control of things. It's teaching you how to have control. This is all interaction between people. Courtesy, name calling, stop name calling. And so being courteous. Don't let anybody be more courteous than you. I fall down on that myself sometimes because I forget, and I have to catch myself. I say, wait a minute, I'm not, this person is being courteous and I'm being courteous, but I'm not as courteous as they are. So I get back into the courtesy line as best I possibly can. Okay, so let's move on. Number 6, stop stealing. And it says here, even from an enemy, even from people who have stolen from you, even from a racist. Don't steal. Why? Because the racists want you to steal. See, all of these stops are tied to getting rid of racism, really. It may not look like it on the surface, but they are. These 10 stops. So you don't steal. Now, a lot of people have told me in reading that or talking about it down through the years, they say, Fuller, you never had to steal nothing. That's why you talk like that. Talking about don't steal. I mean, a whole lot of black people got to steal. Man, ain't they survived unless they... I say, well, no, we can probably look at it a different way and say maybe we don't. Because maybe you can do something else, like beg. And they say, well, begging ain't going to get you nothing and all like that. I say, well, if you just keep begging, you're going to get something. Even if somebody shows up and say you got to stop begging, which most likely, depending on where you are, someone is going to say, yeah, you're begging, you're soliciting. That's what they'll call it. You're panhandling. You're begging. Well, there are all kinds of historical landmarks for that, you might say, philosophical landmarks. A lot of people call themselves Christians. Well, there was a man named Jesus. He was a beggar. I mean, he asked people to follow him. That's begging. I mean, and he got in trouble doing it. But he wasn't stealing. All right? So it comes down to one question. Is it better to beg or to steal? And when you brainstorm it, you'll come to the conclusion that when it comes to black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere and in other parts of the world, it's probably better to beg. Why? Because you can't steal enough. That's number one. Lots of people find this out the hard way. I look in the papers every day and I see where some black person, was trying to steal something. Now it's got to do all that hard time. And one of the things that keeps striking me down through the years is what they were trying to steal, they could probably get it from a dump somewhere sometimes. I mean, we're nickel and dime thieves. We're the worst thieves in the world. The black people of this planet. I mean, when I say worse, I mean the sorriest, the most pitiful thieves. That should be the best word. The most pitiful thieves in the world. Now, the white supremacists steal whole continents. They steal whole people. They steal whole villages. I mean, they steal. They are the greatest thieves that the world has ever seen, the white supremacists. But we shouldn't copy them. We shouldn't be petty thieves, and we shouldn't steal on a grand level. I mean, here it is, 2017, and you still have black people who think that they can outsmart the white supremacists when it comes to stealing. I mean, black people who call themselves officials, sitting up behind a desk and thinking that they have discovered some new way of out-stealing from the white supremacists or from people in general, and think that the white supremacists don't know how they are doing it. when the white supremacists are the greatest thieves that the world has ever seen. And they don't know how you go about stealing. They know more about stealing than you and your grandfather and everybody that's coming down in the future will ever know, probably. Because they have done so much of it on a huge scale and on a petty scale. So that ought to tell you something right there. You're not going to steal enough to retire and say, I am a master thief. Now I own boats and whatnot out there on the ocean and all like that, and I'm a millionaire and all. Not likely. And particularly street robbery, which is what black people brag about being, street robbers. The most pitiful type of thief. And that's the next, I say stop stealing. That's number 6. Number 7 is stop robbing, but they both go together. Except stealing is when you sneak and take something. Robbing is when you take something at gunpoint or something like that. You threaten somebody with violence. That's robbery. But both of them is you're taking something from somebody that they don't want you to take. They're not giving it to you. You didn't beg for it or work for it and get it. We need to get out of that mode of thinking because we are not very good at it, just on that alone. We're not good at it. We pay a heavy price for that nickel and dime nonsense. From this moment on, every white person on the planet who discovers that something is missing, that somebody took it, somebody stole it, should be able to say, well, there's one thing we know for sure. It wasn't a black person. Because black people don't do that kind of stuff no more. We do it. We do it on a grand scale. But black people just don't do it. For whatever they want, they'll ask you for it. And if they don't get it, they'll keep asking. They'll beg you for it. They'll just keep begging until finally you lock them up for begging. And that is the one charge that every black person, if they are locked up, should be guilty of. Guilty of begging. Because there's nothing dishonorable about begging when everything has been taken from you and everything has been taken from black people. We don't have anything that we can really call our own. So we are beggars anyway. Now, there are a lot of black people who will say, oh, no, I don't steal and I don't rob and I definitely don't beg. I work for everything I got. You beg for a job. Don't say you don't beg. Well, I don't have no job. I'm in business of myself. You beg for a loan. Come on. I don't care how you dress it up. There are only 3 ways to get capital. And in the system of white supremacy, you have to have capital. There's 3 ways of getting it. You invent something that people want or need. That's number 1. And very few people invent anything. Number 2, robbing and stealing. That's the biggest one. If you're going to call yourself a capitalist, if you don't invent something or produce something that people want or need, and you go to number 2 is the biggest one, robbing and stealing. And then there's number 3, asking and or begging. Now, what's the difference between asking and begging? Begging is asking twice. Asking, you beg once. Even in The Godfather say, I don't do no begging. So if I ask you to do something the first time, give that part to Johnny Fontaine in that movie. When I ask you and I get turned down, next thing you find is not another request, another asking, because that would be begging. You find a horse's head in your bed. Now, only the white supremacists have that kind of muscle when you speak within a racial context. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about robbing and stealing. We need to get out of that altogether. And if every black person on the planet becomes just an outright beggar, because that's what we are anyway. When we go and ask for funds for our school, or we ask for integration, or we ask for, please help us establish a black Wall Street, or don't shut down our neighborhood, or please rent me a house, or please don't tear down the house that I got and gentrify it and all like that. That's begging.
Right. Hold that thought right there because we're taking a quick break here, and I'll let you finish the top 10. 800-450-7876. Speak to Neely Fuller Jr. As soon as he's finished with the 10, we'll take calls for him right here on AM 1450 and FM 95.9. WOL, where information is power.
50 and 95.9 WOL.
All righty. Thank you, Tom. Before we go back to our guest, Neely Fuller Jr., just want to remind you, coming up in the next few days, we're going to speak with Professor James Small, Afrocentric teacher. Also, Brother Zaki Baruti out of St. Louis, the Universal African Peoples Organization. He says a lot of missing black folks are turning up in his area, and he's got a plan to do something about that. Also, he says the violence in our community, he says he's got another plan. And we're going to take some calls for Neely Fuller after he finishes up the top 10 basic stops that black people should do or must do. Dr. Fuller, I'm going to let you continue. Go ahead.
Okay, number 8, stop fighting. You know, beer fights, after the game, football fights, fighting on the football field. Just stop fighting people, all right? Just simply, stop fighting. Get out of the habit of looking forward to fighting, being in a gang fight or whatever kind of fight it is. What are you fighting for? I mean, you fight not in that fist fight or gunfight type way. You fight. It's okay to fight. You might use that term. The word fight is broad. You fight for justice, but just that fighting about somebody said something about you or somebody didn't pay you some money that they owed you or something like that. I mean, that's not the way to go about doing it. So stop fighting. Negotiate with people. Talk to them and whatnot, or something like that. But figure out a way not to fight. And while I'm speaking of that, speaking of fighting, this thing that black males have all over the world of fighting black females particularly. Woman, I'm the man of the house. You're going to obey me. You do what I say do. You're not a man. That's number one. Number one. You're not a man. There's only one man on the planet, and he's white. So forget about that. In the system of white supremacy, there's only one person who is qualified to be a man. And when they say it, be telling the truth. And that is a male person who is white in the system of white supremacy. All non-white males are not men. Why? Their manhood has been stripped of them when they became subject to the system of white supremacy. That's a pretty bold statement to make, but it always has to pass the truth test. Is either true or false. Either men are boys are dependent on men. That's why black males are sometimes, in conversations, they resent it, but it's an accurate description when particularly a white person, calls them boy. When I'm called boy. Is that true? Am I a boy or am I a man? Well, within the context of the system of white supremacy, as a victim of white supremacy, as a person who's been captured and put into captivity and never been released, I've never been released from the captivity of the system of white supremacy, so I've been made into a boy, a permanent boy, and I will remain a boy until I'm no longer subject to the system of white supremacy. Boys have to obey men. I can't tell a white person nowhere on this planet what to do, and they better do it. But millions of white people can tell me what to do, and I better do it. Otherwise, I won't eat. I won't have a roof over my head. I won't be able to get a loan. If the white supremacists say I ain't getting it, I ain't getting it, because it ain't no place to get it. And if there is a place, I want somebody to tell me where it is. Okay, so let's clear that up right now. So fighting, stop fighting about this little petty stuff. I mean, go and negotiate with anybody, white or non-white, and try to settle whatever the grievance is that you have, or the complaint, or the dissatisfaction. We're all dissatisfied about something, but you ain't going to get nothing by fighting the person and call yourself going to make them do something. Because if you're fighting with another black person, it's not logical. You're going to have to answer to the white supremacists because they okay all fights. All right? So you might as well go to the white supremacists in the first place and get them to settle whatever it is that you want them to settle. Okay? Now, so since you have to do that, then don't fight. Then you probably won't have to do that. You can negotiate with the person that you have your complaint with. Now, number 9, stop killing unless you're forced to do so. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of that other than just say direct self-defense, and then there's another reason when you kill people, and that's called maximum emergency compensatory action. But that's a racial thing or a counter-racial thing. That's dealing with the racists at a maximum circumstance that requires killing, or when killing is perceived to be required. But I'm not going into details about that at all. I just gave the title of it. That the details are in the book because it's a long, drawn-out stretch of details that have to meet certain criteria, certain exact criteria. When you start talking about killing anybody, that's taking anybody out of this world. All right? By your will. That's what killing is about. You kill another person by your will. Now, in direct self-defense, every animal is eligible and should be eligible to defend himself, herself, itself, etc., etc., etc. Every creature, when you're attacked with someone trying to kill you, you have a duty to defend yourself, from that attack, to repel the aggression by any means that you can, because the person is trying to kill you. That person shouldn't be killing you unjustly and whatnot. You defend yourself. So that goes without saying, or rather I am going to say it, definitely. See, that stop killing thing, the exception to that rule is self-defense. And the number 2, is maximum emergency compensatory action. And that's described within a racial context. And so I'm not going to say any more about that because there's too much detail in that, because killing is serious business. And among black people, more than anybody on the planet, black people should really look up on killing anybody or anybody being killed as some real serious business, not anything to play with, not anything to make a game out of, all that gang banging and all that nonsense. You're showing contempt for the Creator. What created you? You're showing absolute contempt for your Creator. And you shouldn't be entitled to anything if you're around here thinking that killing is some kind of sport. And that includes everybody on the planet. The white supremacists have made a sport out of it. And we don't want to copy them. We want to take that to be real serious. Killing anybody willfully and deliberately and unjustly shouldn't happen ever at all under any circumstance. So that takes care of that killing. And you can go to the book to get more details on that. In fact, under the 10 stops, you can get more detail on all of it. Now we go to number 9, which is the last, number 10 rather, which is the last one. Stop squabbling among yourselves and asking the racists to settle it. Stop squabbling among yourselves and then asking the racists, the white supremacists, to settle the squabble. Settle the squabble yourself. You ask the racists to settle the squabble, all you're doing is just giving them more power. And that's usually how the squabble winds up. The racists have to step in and knock black people's heads together and say, now stop this squabbling. You stop it because I said so. Doesn't make any difference who's right or wrong. I'm on the scene now. Big Dad is here. The nonsense is all over because we're serious people. That's why we dominate you and your grandparents before that and your grandparents before that, and we intend to dominate you as long as we are white supremacists throughout the entire eternity of the entire future. So when I tell you to stop that squabbling, you can argue with each other about whether or not you're going to stop, but you're not going to argue with me, and you know it. And if you try to argue with me, you know before you even start the argument, you're going to lose, because you always did. Your parents before you always did, and your great African king parents before that, they all lost when they went up against me. So shut up, boy, shut up, gal, and do what I tell you. Now, this is the result of what happens when black people, non-white people, squabble with each other. Big Daddy and Big Mama step in. The great white father, the great white mother, the white supremacists. They step in and say, enough of that noise. Behave, or you'll have to answer to whom? To me. And if you get in my face, you know what's going to happen. So don't even start. So knowing this, number 10 in the code, it says, stop squabbling among yourselves and run into the races to settle the squabble. Because if you keep squabbling, that's where it's going to wind up anyway. So you might as well just figure out a way, even if you just walk away and say, hey, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Because the code outlines how to settle the squabble. You minimize conflict by minimizing all unnecessary contact. Now, this is in the book. And that takes care of the 10 stops.
All right. Tell us how we can get the book before I take some calls for you.
Yes, you can get the book and all the things that I've been talking about, whatnot. You can go to the 2016 edition of the book, the updated version, and go into producejustice.com. Got a lot of suggestions in here in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, religion, sex, lots about sex, lots about religion, by going to producejustice.com. And in the book, it's supposed to tell you how to handle certain situations and how not to handle them. Like the 10 stops I just went over, those are 10 stops about how not to handle situations.
800-450-7876. Ernest's been holding for a while. Ernest, do you have a question or a comment for Neely Fuller Jr.?
Yes. I would like to know, Mr. Fuller, how should we, as African people, deal with other African people that we feel like is going against the race, like the ones that met with Donald Trump, who doesn't seem to be working in our best interests? So what should we do with those black people? And the other thing,
I'm going to go straight to the code. What you do is just listen and look at what they're doing. And you do nothing about that. Why? Because we're all prisoners of war. All prisoners of war are equal. So you don't deal with that. You deal with the prison master. You go straight to the prison master for everything that you want. Why? Because that's the logical thing to do. You're going to talk to a fellow prisoner about what they said to the warden and what they're doing with the warden? That's not where the problem is. The problem is with the warden. See, if we're all equal prisoners, and we all are, according to counter-racist science, counter-racist logic. So you just listen to whoever's sitting there at the table. Any black person want to speak, let them speak.
All right, let me jump in here because we got to go. Neely Fuller Jr. and Ernest, thank you for that question. Folks are running late as usual, but stay strong, stay positive, stay in the light. See you tomorrow at 4:00 right here on AM 1450 and FM 95.9 WOL, where information is power.